Okay, so here we go. We are going to do our next project and we're going to work on the design part here today. And so what are we trying to make? Well, we're going to make this, we're going to make a rack. And so what we're trying to do is we're going to create this type of shape here. So we found this Craftsman-style clothing rack. And so it has a little shelf on the top. We can see it's got a little bit of detail on the sides. And then we're going to try to create this. And we're going to do probably 20. This is about a 20-inch wide. So we'll stick with that for now. We'll go 19 and a half. All right. So for our design, we're going to start with our, I'm going to close this out. We're going to start with our parameters. So we click modify, change parameters, and I'm going to enter my stock thickness. So all one word, and we're going to do 0.75 and hit OK. And then I'm going to do my width, and that was 29.5. And that's probably what I need for right now. I'm going to add another couple because if I look at this image here, right, I have a width from the side, but I also have basically a height and then a depth. So we're going to pull this out of our board width. So I'm going to add another one of board width, and that's 7.5. And then we're going to call it shelf width. And the shelf width is going to be, we'll do 3, start there. And then the bottom width, we're going to go with 4. That leaves us a ½ inch to play with to worry about the curve of the board if we have to clean up the edges at all. All right, that's enough to start here. So what I want to do is I'm going to start by making a sketch. I'm going to make a sketch of the top. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a rectangle. I'm going to do a center rectangle. And I'm going to do the top shelf width by the width. And that's going to look like that. I'm going to finish that sketch and hit the home button to zoom back out. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude that. So I hit the E button. I'm going to go by stock thickness. And I'm going to go from there. So that's going to be that shelf part. Now what I need to do is I need to create a rectangle down here. And I'm going to basically make a sketch. And I want it to be there. And I'm again going to make a center rectangle, but I'm going to cheat a little bit. So I'm going to say center rectangle. I'm going to start here at the midpoint. And I want it to go out equally on both sides. But I want the stock thickness to be basically from here to here. So to do that, I'm going to say that is 2 times the stock thickness. And then I want to make this my width. And those things on the end, those look like maybe 2 inches is probably a good value. So I'm going to say width minus 4. So that's 2 inches on both sides. All right. So what's the advantage of doing that? Well, now that I have that, I'm going to go back to this. I can't really see that part. So I'm going to go down. What I want to do is I want to click on just that profile and I want to extrude. And I'm going to go by bottom width, which was 4. And I don't want to join. I want to make it a new body. We're going to make these components in a bit. All right, let's take a look at that. That's starting to look very similar to what we had before. All right, if I look at this image though again, I can see that those sides are inset back. So actually this thickness here is a little bit less. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to extrude this by, let's say it's like a ¼ inch, -1 divided by 4, and that's going to be a cut. And so I'm going to know that I'm going to have to plane that down a little bit. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to add those end pieces to this. So I'm going to create another sketch. I'm going to do it on the bottom again. So I'm going to create a sketch down here. It'll reorient itself. And I want to make a rectangle. This time a corner rectangle will work. So I'm going to go 2 by stock thickness. So stock thickness by 2, hit enter. And I'm going to reorient myself a little bit so I can see it. I'm going to click on that profile. I'm going to extrude that to be the bottom width. Sorry, not the board width. And it looks like it's stuck out a little bit, so plus 1/4 inch. There we go. And let's see, did I make a new body on that one? I didn't, I joined it, so I want to make a new body. Hit OK. All right, I don't want to have to create that again on the other side, so I'm actually going to go back here and I'm going to turn that body off. And I'm going to construct a midplane. So I go to construct midplane and click on that, and hit OK. And then I'm going to turn that body back on, and I'm going to create a mirror. So mirror, I'm going to click on this body and click on this plane and go from there. And new body. All right, so we're starting to kind of look like that. And what I need to do now is I need to have the peg, right? So we have some pegs that we're going to use. So ours look like this. And what I want to do is I have a physical thing that I want to actually bring in, and it needs to look like this and have these dimensions attached to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a feature in Canvas, in Fusion 360 that allows me to bring in a canvas and calibrate that canvas to an actual thing. So all I need to do is I need to capture an image of this. So I'm going to line it up so it's a little bit closer. It's not going to really matter where I put it. I have it on a grid that's broken up into inch and then half-inch grids. And so I'm going to use just my snipping tool to capture the shape. And I'm going to save that. And then I don't need this anymore. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, in Fusion, I'm going to insert a canvas. And I'm going to insert from my computer. And this shaker peg scale, that's what I just named it. And I'm going to put it on this plane. Let's think for a second. It's not going to really matter. All right, I'm going to move it over to the side because I don't really need it where it is, and hit OK. All right, so if I zoom in on this thing, there it is. I'm going to go to the front so we can see it. All right, the issue is it's not the scale that I want it to be. So I'm going to click on canvases over here, and I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to calibrate this thing. So what that means is I'm going to basically pick 2 points that I know the distance of. So I know that to that point is not 0.18 inches, that is 2 inches. And what we'll see here is it's now scaled that value to actually be the real size. So what I can do now is I can start to sketch. I can actually draw this thing out. So I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to create a sketch on this. And I'm going to basically try to make this as close as I can to this shape. So I'm going to start actually with a line. So I hit the L button. I'm going to try as best I can to go to the middle. And to the middle there. All right, I don't love where this one is placed, so all right, that looks a little bit more like a center line. All right, I'm going to use the spline tool. So the spline tool, I'm going to fit that there. Basically, everywhere I click, I get a control point. And I'm going to go in and just, again, zooming in, trying to fit this as best I can. I don't need it to be perfect, but I do want it to be close. And I get a little bit of an indent here. And a little bit of, let's see, all right, and hit enter. All right, I can go back and I can adjust these with these control points if I want to, if I don't like the shape. But for what we're doing, let's see, that one came off too far. Let me undo what I did here. All right, Oops. Okay, so I have that outline, but it's still not 3 dimensions. So what I want to do is I want to finish sketch. I'm going to now click on this part and I'm going to create this revolve. So I want to revolve around that value, and it went 360, and it's going to be a new body, and I hit OK. And now when I look at that thing, I've actually got a 3-dimensional view of body that I can start to use for my shape. So let's take a quick, let's look at it from the front again. I want to know a quick kind of distance. So I'm going to press M for measure. And I'd like to know, oops, sorry, not M for measure. I want to inspect. So I'm going to click inspect, and I want to kind of know what that distance is. So let me go back into my sketch real quick. Here we go. All right. So if I do inspect from like that point to that point, that's about 1/4 of an inch. So this thing is probably a 1/2 inch all the way across. And that makes sense. If I go back and I look at my actual peg, right, these are 1/2 inch spacings, and that seems to cover it up pretty well. So the idea is I want a 1/2 inch hole to place this in Fusion. So I've hit finish. And I want to now make a sketch here where these are going to go. So I'm going to make a new sketch there. And I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to find the midpoint, that triangle, and go up. And I actually want the midpoint of both of these. That feels like the spot to put it. And as I hover across, there we go. I'm going to do 1/2 inch. All right. Finish sketch. I'm going to click on that profile, and I'm going to extrude a negative 1/2. Actually, I don't know how far, because we brought that back. So I'm going to do a little different. I'm going to go, instead of distance, I'm going to go to object. And so I want to go to the back of this, wherever that is, and that will cut it all the way through. All right, let's see. Let's try that again. So these planes are kind of getting, I'm going to turn off my construction there. All right, that, extrude to object, and I'd like to go to the back of that and cut and hit OK. All right. Now, why did I not draw all 3 of them? Well, I have in my timeline here this extrusion. And when I do that, I can make a pattern from that. So I'm going to click pattern, and I want to click actually features. So features are anything that happens on my timeline. So I want to click this. That's an extrusion. I'm going to click that, and I want to click an axis that it's going to go on. So let's just use this bottom line here. All right. Here we go. And we're going to go in 2 directions, symmetric. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball to see where that looks right. Like 8 inches looks pretty good in terms of spacing. I'm going to hit OK. All right, so now I've put in that spacing, and it's time to kind of look at this and think about how we're going to put the pegs into the right spot. So I have a bunch of bodies here that I want to rename. So this is the top shelf. Top shelf. This is the bottom. I'm going to call it, this is the peg board, right? This is the side. This is the side. And this is the peg. Okay. So what I want to do is I actually want to take this and move it in there. And there's a couple ways I can do this. But before I want to do that, I'm going to actually make these components, and we'll see why in a second. So I'm going to say create component from body, create component from body, create component from body, create component from body, create component from body. All right. What I want to do now is I'm going to actually construct what's called a joint. So I'm going to fix these 2 together by assembling a joint. So I'm going to click joint here. And I'm going to go to the bottom of this one. You can see it has this little kind of grid snap thing attached to it. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to click on this, trying to get the same orientation, and we'll see where it goes. That looks pretty good. I want it to go back by a 1/2 inch, so I'm just going to pull it back to a 1/2 inch right there. And I went back 0.6. Let's do 0.5. Perfect. All right. So what you can see is it created that peg right where I wanted. I was able to move it with this joint. So it's like our assembly piece. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to create a pattern, and not of features, but of actually components. I want to grab this one, and my axis is the same. And I'm going to go symmetric 3. And if we remember our spacing, it should have been 8 inches. So we'll do 8 inches. And there we go. It creates more components for us. You know, I have 3 that are there. All right. Let's add a little bit more detail to this. So we can see here, if I go back to my image, right? This upper shelf has this nice chamfered edge, and then the bottom piece actually also has a smaller chamfer to it. So I'm going to use the chamfer tool. So modify chamfer. I want to select this edge, go to rotate, go to select this edge. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to select this edge, and I'm going to pull those in. Let's just see. I should have an arrow somewhere. There it is. To a number that I feel looks good. So let's go a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch probably looks about right. All right. So we have that chamfer there. Right now, what I can see is what's happened here is I brought that chamfer in, and now my sides don't look correct. So I have a couple of options. One is that I change the sketch, which I can do. The other option is to just adjust it manually here. So if I click on this side, I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to bring it into like what makes sense. Let's go a 1/2 inch. Let's take a look at that. All right, that 1/2 inch looks pretty good. So let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to extrude by negative 0.5 and bring that in. That's looking better. And then I'm actually going to add the chamfer down here as well. So I'm going to do a modify chamfer. That. And I'm going to go in by not as much. Let's do like we did a 1/4. Let's do 1 divided by 8. That looks good. And I can do it on the other side too. But if I turn my construction back on, I can actually do a mirror to that feature as well. So I could say mirror, not bodies, but features. That chamfer needs to go to the other side, and won't let me do it. All right, so it won't let me mirror that feature across. So I'm going to turn my construction back off. I'm just going to do it manually. So I'm going to the chamfer, this, and this, and we did 1 divided by 8. All right, so it's starting to look very similar to what we have here. So let's add a little bit of appearance to it. So actually I haven't saved this for a while, so I'm going to save this as Craftsman peg rack. All right, and what I want to do is click, right click. I'm trying to get my appearance. I'm going to hit A, brings up the appearance menu. So I hit A, there's my appearance, and we're going to make this look a little bit realistic. So I'm going to say wood. So I'm probably going to use redwood for this, but let's, we just have some darker features. So we'll say that maybe we do cherry for the top shelf. I'm going to download that first, cherry. So cherry for the top shelf, cherry for the pegboard, cherry for the side and the side. All right. And then I'm going to do something darker for the pegs because that's what it looks like in that one. So I'm going to say peg is this walnut. All right, let's hit close. Let's take a look. So we're starting to get it to look very similar to what we saw online. The only thing that's left are those little kind of triangular pieces, these little fixtures here on our Craftsman. So let's see what we can do to make that happen. There's a couple of options that I can think of. So I'm going to make a sketch on this face, and I'm going to start with a rectangle. So I'm going to make a rectangle and create a center rectangle from the midpoint there. And I'm going to come down and just kind of see a size that I think works. So maybe 0.75 by 0.75. Let's see what that looks like. Looks a little too big to me, so I'm going to change that to be 0.5 by 0.5. And I want to align that with the center. Okay, so I have my sketch. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to extrude that by 1/4 of an inch to start. And this should be a new body. Okay, so I have that shape. What I don't have yet is that look to it where it is the kind of pyramid shape. So let's see what we have. We have the ability to create a loft. We could try that, but I'm going to actually see if I can just chamfer that. So if I take this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge and I pull them in, there we go. That gets me really pretty close. If I do 0.25, is it going to go all the way? Nope. Let's do 0.2 and I hit OK. There we go. We've kind of made that feature. Now we'll talk about what that feature, how we're going to actually create that. We're not going to make that out of wood. We're actually going to 3D print that because that's something that's easy for us to 3D print, hard for us to make. And so what I want to do is I'm going to, from this body, this is, I'll call this our pyramid. All right. I'm going to make that a component. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that down. So I'm going to go back to my sketch though real quick because I didn't really put that in a spot where I know where it is. So I'm going to hit D for dimension. There to there, I'm going to say like 1.5. That seems to work. Let's do 1.25. And then finish sketch. And then what I want to do is, again, I'm going to make a linear pattern. I'm going to click this one. And my axes, I'm going to go down here. I actually want to go down this time. And I only need 2. And I'm going to go across. And I only need 2. And I'm just going to, because we're going to do this down the, we're just going to eyeball where it is. So 27 inches, hit OK. All right. There we go. We have made our rack. And what we need to do next is we need to actually like lay out our pieces here. So I'm going to create, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Actually, let me do something a little. We're going to add this into a component. So I'm going to say that this is new component. This is our, I'm going to just call it full assembly. And what I want to do is drag everything in there. So that to that goes in my full assembly. All right, so now it's something I can turn on and off if I want to. Okay, so I need to make a sketch. I'm going to go here. And I'm going to make a rectangle. Oops. I extruded it. Sorry. I'm going to go back to my origin. All right. I'm going to make a rectangle. R for rectangle. This is my board width. And I need 30 inches, I think, to make this happen. We're going to go with 36. I think that's what we have available. Let's see what we have. All right. And I hit finish sketch. All right. Now that I've done that, I can start to try to arrange this. So when I think about my arrangement, I'm going to modify, arrange, and my envelope is this, so that's where I'm going to lay it out. And then the objects, I want to only worry about top shelf, side, side, and my pegboard. All right, let's see if we can get those on there. All right, let me look to the top. Okay, so it did the pegboard and it did these two, but it did not allow me. So let me go back into my arrangement. Let me edit that. Let's make my envelope. I want this to be like 1 divided by 16. And then my object spacing can be 1 divided by 8 because that's the curve for my blade. I'm going to hit OK. All right, there we go. That's looking much better. So when I have this here, now I can see on the top, I'm going to go back and hit the little button, radio button next to the whole thing so I can see it. I'm going to click my top. And now I can see what my layout's going to look like, right? And this is good. That grain orientation is the correct way. So I'm going to now go ahead and make a drawing from this so that we can talk about the fabrication steps. So I'm going to go from design to drawing. I'm going to make this size A because that's what I can print easily. That's 8.5 by 11. It's going to take a minute to load. All right. And I'm just going to click somewhere for now. And I'm going to make this one shaded. 1 to 16 looks a little bit small. I'll try 1 to 8. I'll even try 1 to 5. We'll see why in a second. And I want this to be, let's say, our northeast isometric. How's that look? I don't love that one. Let's do southeast isometric. Nope. Let's do northwest isometric. It's okay. Let's do northeast isometric. All right. None of those seem to be working very well. So I'm just going to hit OK for a minute. I don't like the look of that. There's a look that I want better. So I'm going to click arrange there and get rid of that. What I can do is I can go back here and I can basically create my own named view. So like for me, I'm going to try to mirror like what we see on the computer when we looked at this, right? That's how they laid it out. So let's see if we can mirror that idea. So that looks pretty close. I'm going to just rotate a little bit more, maybe like that. And what I can do here is I have this named view and I can right click and say new named view. And I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this advertisement, for lack of a better word. But that's what we're going to put in our advertisement. So I'm going to save this. And when I go back to this, I'm going to open it up. It's no longer linked, so I'm going to link it first so it's updated. I'm going to go in here, and I should now see advertisement. And there it is. So that's what we wanted. Let's go a little smaller, or a little bigger, 1 to 4. So we've created our own special kind of named view for this that we like the look of. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to make another view. This we will also do 1 to 4. And this will be from the top. This will be our layout. And so we hit OK. Black and white is OK for this one. I'm going to turn off the full assembly. And basically what we have now is we have our layout and we can start to add our dimensions to it. So I'm going to add some dimensions there to there. I'm going to add that rip from there to there. I'm going to add there to there. That's 3. This length here for our top piece is a little longer, 29.5. These are, all right, because we modified these, so 1.5. And then the full length, I'm going to go from there to there, 4.25. And I'm going to hit escape. And maybe I don't like where that 1.5 is. I'm going to put it inside. And then because we usually don't have our decimal values, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to change that by double clicking, and not a decimal value, but fractional. This one is fractional. Okay, so we've made all of them fractional. and I want to add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to add another dimension of between there is 8. And then I'd like to get, yeah, that diameter is a 1/2 inch. So that gives me enough to basically, let's add one more dimension from there to there in case we wanted it. And from there to the center of that. All right, we don't want to have a million dimensions. That becomes hard to track, but we want enough that we'd actually be able to lay this thing out and build it. So I'm going to add one more piece, which is the shaker peg. And so I'm going to do another view. I don't really care what this one is. I'm going to make it actually bigger for now. We'll go 1 to 4 again. And then for this one, I don't need the arrange, and I only need the peg. And I can see that that view isn't going to work. So I'm going to, let's see if we do a northeast isometric. Let's do the front. Let's do the top. One of those is going to give it to us. All right, that looks a little bit awkward because I had it drawn at an angle. So I'm actually going to do our isometric and make it shaded and make it even bigger. Let's start 1 to 1. Is it going to fit 1 to 1? And hit close. All right, I can move this whole thing down. Right. And my last piece, if I wanted to add some notes to this, I'm trying to think about like how I'm going to do this or what those pieces are. I can add here, and I could say like this is a 1/4 inch chamfer. Is chamfer spelled with a PH? Nope. I got it. All right. So I have a 1/4 inch chamfer. Right, I could add another note. I could say this is an 1/8 inch chamfer, right? And then what I can also say is I know that this pegboard, so I can put a text here, right? There's nothing on it yet, but I have to say that this is planed to one, what are we doing, 1/8? I think we're doing 1/4. And stock. So we make it smaller. All right, so there we go. We have made a plan, and we're going to save that. So this is our peg rack drawing, whatever we want to call it. There we go. And we're ready. We can export as a PDF and talk about how we would actually assemble this, right? So our joinery is going to be different. Oh, we didn't add the feature here. We can add that in there if we want. Actually, we'll leave it out for now, but we'll come back and talk about in another video how we're going to 3D print that to make it stand out. All right, that's it.